Hi and welcome. Today I want to show you another very strange watch, and I don't mean a strange just in terms of design, but strange in the position it tries to occupy in the watch world. It's a watch that's been with me for over a month now, and yet this won't be a proper review, simply because I never actually wore it, not even once. I put it on a few times purely to take photos because it is very photogenic, but I never wore it in real life, for one very specific reason that I'll explain later. Still, I think it's worth showing you and talking about because this watch represents a very unusual phenomenon. It belongs to a growing category of watches made in China by Chinese brands that are deliberately trying to enter territory traditionally reserved for very different players. In this case, that territory is high-end complications. This watch comes with two complications that are generally considered serious and well established. The first one is a big date. At 12 o'clock you have two separate windows, each driven by its own disk. Big date displays are already a respected complication in watchmaking, but here it's not the main attraction. The real focal point of this watch is the hourly striking complication. The sound you just heard. It's executed in exactly the same way as in the Christopher Ward bel Canto. We're dealing with a module mounted on top of a Miyota 9 series movement. Normally, this module would be used for a jumping hour display, but here it has been re-engineered to strike once every full hour. On the dial, you can actually see the hammer itself. Over the course of an hour, it's gradually pulled away, and the moment the full hour is reached, it releases and produces a clean, distinct sound. What's interesting is that this watch actually sounds louder and more pronounced than the Christopher Ward bel Canto, which is worth noting. I'll move the microphone closer so you can hear it properly. While I never wore this watch, I did spend quite a lot of time wearing the bel Canto, and based on that experience, I can say that this kind of complication is genuinely practical and surprisingly pleasant to live with. Of course, someone could sarcastically point out that a basic Casio can do something similar, but that completely misses the point. Here, it's not about functionality alone. It's about how that functionality is achieved. That's what makes it interesting and engaging. This watch has two additional pushers. The lower pusher activates or deactivates the hourly striking module. A black bell icon indicates that the chime is active, while a red icon means it's turned off. The second pusher controls the big date. And this is where the watch reminded me of the Leica ZM models I showed on the channel last year. The tactile feel of operating this pusher is genuinely impressive, and honestly, that surprised me, because expecting less or even expecting disappointment has been a recurring theme in my interaction with this watch. Time and again, it turns out to be better executed than I anticipated. I was already familiar with Lucky Harvey from their first generation striking watch released about a year earlier. That model, in my opinion, was awkward, larger, clumsier, less refined, and with a much more prominent Lucky Harvey logo on the dial. The brand name itself would probably be enough to put me off, especially if it were printed boldly on the dial. The second generation, however, has been significantly improved. The proportions are better, the aesthetics are calmer, and the logo is now subtle, placed discreetly at the top of the dial. In terms of design, we're looking at a modern integrated bracelet watch. The bracelet brings to mind things like the Vacheron 222 or the Atelier Wen Perception, and again, I expected shortcuts. Instead, the level of execution here is honestly shocking. This is easily on par with Christopher Ward's 12 and quite possibly even a step above. The precision, the tolerances, the way the bracelet and case interact, it's all extremely well done. On top of that, we get a quick change system for both the bracelet and the strap that reminds me most of what I've seen in Leica ZM11 and ZM12. The concept itself is simple, but the execution is incredibly effective and satisfying. Zenith and Hublot use similar ideas, but here it's done exceptionally well. The watch also comes with a strap, which can be mounted just as quickly. This might genuinely be the fastest strap changing system I've ever encountered. Faster than what you get from Cartier or even Vacheron overseas. And once again, the tolerances are outstanding. Looking at the dial, we see CNC executed guilloche. Yes, it's machine made, but it's done cleanly and tastefully. Purely from an aesthetic point of view, this is simply a normal looking watch. And I mean that in a positive way. If someone wants the concept and functionality of the bel canto, but wrapped in a watch that looks more traditional and less experimental, this is a genuinely reasonable alternative. Turn the watch over and you're greeted by a heavily modified and beautifully decorated Miyota 9 series movement. This might actually be the best finished Miyota 9 I've seen so far. We have perlage, a guilloche rotor finished in a gold tone, a semi-open mainspring barrel, blued screws. Visually, there's a lot going on, and it's genuinely enjoyable to look at. The case is made of titanium, which makes the watch very light. The finishing, brushing, polishing, transitions is at an absurdly high level. I'm reminded of another titanium integrated bracelet watch I own, the Zenith Defy Classic, and without hesitation I can say that the Lucky Harvey is finished at least one, if not two, levels higher. That might be uncomfortable for some people to hear, but these are simply facts. Today, for significantly less money, though still not cheap, and with much more exotic complications, you can get a watch that is objectively better made. The bracelet is fully screwed, no pins anywhere, with a butterfly clasp that can be closed in any order. It feels precise and solid, and it's important. If you want a proper integrated bracelet style watch, the bracelet should be on par with everything else. Here it is. And yet, I don't wear this watch. Despite great size on paper, being significantly reduced compared to the first generation, to a sweet spot of a 40 mm in diameter and under 13 mm thick. Without the crystal, the case itself is only about 11 mm thick, which is truly impressive considering the complications, 50 meters of water resistance and a display case back. Lug to lug is 46 mm, so it should work. The numbers look great, but it doesn't, at least for my wrist. To put this into perspective, I want to compare it briefly to another integrated bracelet watch, also measuring 40 mm in diameter. Visually, the IWC looks noticeably smaller, and that's not because of the case diameter, but because the dial itself is smaller, which always affects how large or compact a watch appears at first glance. But visual presence is only part of the story. What really matters for comfort is how the bracelet behaves on the wrist. On the IWC, the bracelet adds almost nothing to the overall width of the watch. It drops straight down and wraps naturally around the wrist. As a result, the watch sits comfortably on the wrist without forcing its shape. With the Lucky Harvey, it's a different story. The price you pay for that clean, continuous integration between case and bracelet is that the bracelet doesn't collapse inward as much. It maintains its geometry instead of adapting to the wrist. Because of that, despite sharing the same 40 mm diameter, this watch wears significantly larger. It doesn't sit on the wrist, it wraps around it. And that's why, in my case, it really wants a wrist of around 18.5 centimeters to feel right. I can physically wear it, of course, but I don't enjoy watches that create this kind of rigid ring around the wrist with visible space underneath, even when the bracelet is sized down as far as it will go. The strap doesn't solve this either. It's thick and structured, designed to maintain visual continuity with the case, and it pays the same ergonomic price. The quality of the strap and clasp is excellent, again almost excessive, but the wearing experience just doesn't work for me. And in a way, that perfectly sums this watch up. It's excessive in finishing, in engineering, and in ambition. At around $2,200 to $2,500, it's not cheap, and I genuinely struggle to define its target audience. Beyond collectors who actively enjoy eccentric, unconventional choices, like the owner of this watch who kindly lent it to me, I honestly struggle to clearly define who this watch is really for, and that, in a way, might be its most interesting and its most problematic trait at the same time. Because on one hand, this is an impressively engineered object. The level of finishing, the complexity, the ambition behind it, all of that is very real and very hard to dismiss. On the other hand, watches are not judged only by how clever they are on paper, but by how naturally they fit into someone's life. And this one, at least for me, never quite did. So this is where I'll leave it. This wasn't a review, because I don't review watches I haven't actually lived with, but I hope it was still a meaningful look at a very unusual watch, coming from a very unexpected place, and raising some interesting questions along the way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.